Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Sam Perez. I'm the Robotic Systems Manager for Nexus Technology USA. I'm joined here today by Cooper Smart, our Solutions Engineer. He's going to be giving a focused webinar today on our UAV technology, as well as some new and exciting technology that we are recently have added to our arsenal. So coming to you from different time zones, we are excited to be hosting this today, and we are excited to have you guys on board. We understand with the new landscapes of how things have been unraveling due to COVID, and we appreciate everybody's participation. And we're looking forward to delivering some very insightful and very informative information today. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Cooper Smart. If you guys are interested in asking any questions, this is very informal. We'd like to have questions throughout the webinar, and we're happy to stop, discuss any topics of interest. So please fire away at the Q&A section. I will be monitoring that and make sure all your questions get answered. So thank you very much again. And here's Cooper Smart.
Hey, Sam, thanks for handing over. Hi, everyone. Great to join you from another time zone. Today we're going to be looking at the UAV market and specifically how that's been expanding in the commercial sectors that we also most likely will operate within. I think if you've joined in today, you will understand that there's been quite a rapid uptake of this technology over the last couple of years, and specifically we're starting to find more and more use cases for this technology as it starts to ingress into what we are finding with our work scopes. And it's quite an interesting sector. It's full of new technology, and as you can see, I've got a unit here in front of us, the Ilios 2. I think this is a unit that's kind of paved the way since the iteration of the Ilios 1 up into what it is now. So today I'm just going to briefly talk about the expansion of the market, where we've seen that expansion come from and where we think it's kind of going, the lessons and learnings that we've had along the way from our clients and so forth. And then I'm going to talk a bit briefly about the specific unit here in front of us and how it's worked and its successes, and where it's gone from strength to strength, and how our clients have really benefited from the uses of it. And then I'm going to touch on a new product that's kind of been brought into the Nexus fleet and is kind of pioneering in its own way a new sector of remote visual inspection. Before I move into that, we'll just do a quick update on some of the webinars that we've got coming up. Sam, did you want to run through them quickly?
Yeah, appreciate that, Cooper. As Cooper mentioned, we have a few pretty exciting webinars already scheduled. We're looking to expand on that and continue to add more as the demand grows. So first, to kick off, we have a multi-pronged approach to inspection robotics. We recently gave a similar discussion through the Sprint Robotics webinar as well. So I think it was very well received. We hope to keep expanding on that approach. Again, we'll call a toolbox approach. That will be taking place Thursday, 16th of July. Second, Thursday, 30th of July, the end of the month, we'll be solving dexterity and robotic inspections. So it'd be a really good topic when it comes to complex geometries and complex robotic platforms. Third, August 13th, we'll be delivering end-to-end solutions. I think this kind of goes back to some of that toolbox approach, but how Nexus has kind of pioneered a methodology behind a true end-to-end solutions, and how we accumulate the data and how we process that to turn out turnkey solutions. And finally, as of now, our last scheduled webinar is Thursday, the 27th of August. And this is something that's pretty exciting to me, the 3D mapping and kind of some of the breakthrough work we've had in that respect. And we're looking to showcase, what we've been developing with through our partnerships. So please join us if you have any questions regarding any of these dates or times, any interest in participating in any one of these. Please let myself or anyone on the team know. And if you have any suggestions on topics we can bring about and later dates, please let us know. Back to you, Cooper. Thank you.
No problems. Just a quick touch on what Nexus is and where it began from. Launched in 2014, and over the last couple of years, we've seen that global expansion, and we're now across the globe in Australia, Houston, and Singapore. Sam himself heading Houston office, which we'll come to know quite well. And through that time, we've moved from being a rental and equipment supply company to kind of pioneering in the search for new technology and how we can bring that to our clients. The new direction we're really working with now is what Sam touched on, is this end-to-end solutions, providing a full suite of technology from inception through to handover, including bespoke or customizing of robotic platforms to provide what our clients need. And we're finding one solution does not always kind of fit the mold. We have off the shelf, but we also have customization, which is another arm that we're building on. And through that is how we've kind of got these sister companies that now work with Nexus. 6D is our custom engineering arm. From that, we can do our rapid prototyping, designing and customizing of any of our platforms. Through that end-to-end solution is also making sure that we can do a proper handover to our clients. And with this new technology, there's always a lot of learnings that come with it. And customizing it, we're also improving on that requirement for learnings. So 6D has been developed, which has been kind of a specialized training arm of ours that is ensuring that the end-to-end solution ensures that the technology meets the requirements and we can have a successful, complete scope of work from that initial inception when we come to the table and have a conversation all the way through to the end when the equipment comes back and everything's signed off. So that's a brief overview on Nexus. If you've got any specific information on how we can help you, best just to get in touch with us directly. All right, so I'm going to start moving into what we kind of jumped in here for today, the expansion of the UAV market. First thing I want to touch on is just the expansion and the growth that we've all seen. We will all have noticed that UAV platforms have all been quite prevalent in the industrial area, especially for remote visual inspection. And that all started with our external drones, which kind of came from that hobbyist photo or filming kind of background and now being used and found use cases on sites. These external drones have been pushed and tried in certain scenarios, but they're not equipped to really be internal inspection drones. And that's kind of where we channel a lot of our remote visual inspections for internal inspections, for confined spaces, areas that are difficult to get into. And as we know, once we move internally, the benefits or the features of these external drones, such as GPS localization, which helps stabilize these drones, is lost and cannot be used or is very, very weak in certain scenarios. So it makes use of a UAV platform quite difficult. So what we're finding is that, for example, with bespoke kind of equipment that is tailor-made for these environments, the technology is helping this expansion, this development of this area. And we're now finding that this equipment is allowing us to try new areas, try different scopes, push the boundaries a little bit, and what is was originally not seemed achievable. And through that, I think the operators, the asset owners, as well as the service providers that also use the equipment, are seeing the value streams that are coming, that are available with this. Whether it is, well, the most prominent thing that we want with any kind of robotic platform is the reduction of risk. We're trying to use a method of replacement for this risk. We would much prefer to put any form of robotic platform in the place of a human person if we're able to capture equivalent and hopefully better data, and possibly do it in a more efficient manner. And what UAVs are allowing us to do is exactly that. They're quite an efficient tool in deployment and mobility. We are able to navigate in an environment almost without restriction. We can move in every direction. And so that gives us a lot of flexibility in what we can visually see inside a confined space. Through that, when we're no longer having to possibly scaffold or use rope access, we're now able to move freely within that asset and in a much more efficient manner. So a time factor is a really big benefit to these units. Yes, we may be having to use batteries, but we can have a lot of batteries to be able to still cover as much visual area that we may require. The underlying benefit to a lot of this that we all really want to see, but it becomes, when we try and make tier 3, is it's a cost reduction. We're seeing a value out of this that is really beneficial in the sense that we can save money by being more efficient and not having to put the risk mitigation process in place when we're putting people in confined spaces. And I think that is, and I was also saying that's really where specialized equipment for this environment is making this area grow. And I think that's what we've seen in the last 12 months. This expansion into new areas is really pioneered by equipment that is making it easier for ourselves.
Hey, Cooper, I was wondering if you could touch on a subject here. When it comes to agencies like ASME and even API, what do you see, or what have we seen these agencies kind of help to implement or guide service providers and asset owners when it comes to implementing this type of technology into their repertoire? Is there a push from these agencies to help adapt this type of technology?
Yes, definitely. Excellent question. It's because of that, I think, rapid growth of this kind of technology. These groups, such as ASME and API and other regulations groups, it's an important part that we have these regulations or best practices to be implemented as soon as possible, to give guidance, to give criteria that is required behind using new technology. The UAV market for internal inspection is kind of, as I said, expanded very quickly. I think we've been on top of it before, but I think ASME and all that have realized we really need to act on this quite fast. So as we speak, I know they are working on this and they are building best practices with a planned roadmap to bring that out in the future. And I think that's really important for the operators and the service providers to give them help, give them guidance and direction within that field. But yeah, it's an indication of how quickly this sector is really growing. That was a really good question. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Cooper.
So I'm just going to move on to now the Ilios 2, talk a little bit about this specific unit. The reason I like to talk about this unit is because we've probably seen the most success with this UAV. A lot of use case scenarios where we can elaborate on the strengths of how UAVs have been beneficial to clients. Just quickly want to just recap on how the Ilios 2 came about. So flyability, we pretty much would say pioneered the internal inspection UAV market. Going back possibly, I think it's about 5 years now, the Ilios 1 came to market and it was the first of its kind. It was aimed directly at being an internal inspection drone. came with a cage. The idea was that it could be flown internally and bounce around and hit some objects and fly out, which no other drone could really do. Surely there was ways of mimicking the Ilios One with external drones, ways of adapting an external drone to be somewhat of an internal drone, but they never worked as well as a specifically designed and engineered unit, as with any kind of robotic platform we would see within our industry. So the Ilios One kind of paved that way, gave interest to that market, had a lot of global interest, and some successful operators and service providers really pushed forward with it. And they became very good with the unit. It took quite a bit of skill to fly the Ilios One, but it still showed and proved that UAVs had a place in the internal inspection world. So from the Ilios One, flyability took a lot of feedback from its operators or clients that had purchased the unit and developed the Ilios 2. The three main pointers that they really listened to, or the three main points that came through from all of their operators and clients, was give us an unimpeded view of our camera, make it easier for our pilots to fly the Ilios 2. Those two kind of went in hand. One, if you ever did see video footage of an Ilios One, you had the cage moving in front of you, and it was a little difficult, a little bit hard to keep your bearings. And then thirdly was try and increase the flight time of the unit. Now, flyability with the Ilios 2 knocked the first two out of the park. Unimpeded view, 4K camera, perfectly clear visuals, HD streaming back to the pilot. Making it easy to fly now. It's equipped with optical sensors on all corners to help it stabilize, a much better IMU system on board. It's collision tolerant, so it can be bounced around and pushed into really difficult environments. And with that, increased payload, increased lighting, increased visuals, other sensors, the flight time is exactly the same as the initial unit. But in saying that, the quality of the data that we're getting out of this unit and the ability, the simplicity and the ability for pilots to fly it has increased the window of inspection within that 10 minutes that's been quoted from the manufacturer. Pilots are able to spend a lot more time actually doing an inspection unimpeded with a stable drone compared to what the Ilios One is. So from that, the Ilios 2 has really hit the ground running, and it's since hitting the market in April, June last year. Sales for this unit have been, very, very successful, and we've seen the Ilios now being put into the hands of operators and service providers, and the operators are now taking it on board and bringing it in-house, as well as still using the service providers for their UAV platforms, whether it still be the Ilios 2, because they're using a kind of multi-pronged approach with it now. It's got ability to be a quick, efficient visual tool, and also a really good, thorough visual inspection tool that can be used on both sides as a preliminary kind of inspection method before going into further inspection methods or traditional inspection methods.
Cooper, just to ask a couple of questions there, talking about the evolution from Ilios 1 to Ilios 2, do you think the barrier of entry, for anybody trying to adopt this and implement this technology, that barrier being maybe a little bit lower because of how adaptable this technology is? Do you think that's a result of the progressions that flyability has made with the technology?
Yeah, definitely. So that, using a UAV as a confined space drone, the Ilios 2 has now allowed a general inspector and possible engineers or anyone that hasn't really got UAV experience to now actually use this tool with some very basic introductory training and gather sufficient and adequate data. Previously, you would have had a drone operator that could fly an Ilios One that now had to learn to be an inspector or had to be tandem or partnered with an inspector. Now we've got inspectors that are able to be UAV pilots with this unit and capture that data. The Ilios 2 is now also made, because it's better transmission, more stable, the less less likeliness or less need for a pilot to maintain visual sight of his drone means no longer having to push or try and ensure you got visual sight, which means breaking that boundary of confined space. You can be a lot further away with a lot more confidence in flying the unit. Is there anything else there, Sam? Otherwise, I'll move on to some use cases that we've seen with the drone.
Sounds good. Thank you, Cooper.
All right. So across the board, we've seen the Ilios taken up in a wide range of industries: oil and gas, mining, power generation, be it fossil fuels or nuclear. We've then seen it expand even further from that, and that's, I think, part of that expansion in the UAV market is equipment like this with successes and people pushing it and trying it in new areas, and now finding other areas in which it can be proven to be successful. We're seeing that in such areas such as municipalities, we're seeing it with local councils, we're seeing it in first responders, such as police or rescue operations, a wide range of uses is the Ilios is now kind of finding its place into. One topic I would like to talk about is on power generation. I think it is quite relatable to a lot of industries. Power stations, specifically fossil burning coal-fired ones, have a lot of flue dust debris throughout their whole entire power station, whether it's on the front end, rear end, or within the boilers. And the Ilios 2 has actually really proven to show its strengths in its mobility within these big assets and these big areas to manage to get around these dusty, difficult environments that even robotic crawlers struggle or cannot negotiate, and capture sufficient and really good data. I've had a client of ours that I went and demoed a unit. We actually went specifically for a robotic platform, but I took the Ilios 2 along to just demonstrate its capabilities. Quite a retrenched work style workforce, very traditional in the way in which they did their inspections and maintenance routines. And we went along and took the Ilios 2 and did some basic demonstrations with them. And we were there for a 3-day campaign. And by day 3, I had about 12 engineers pulling me left and right, trying to get me to look at different areas along their power station, because they realized, hey, we could use it here, hey, we could use it there. And specifically on a precipitator on the back end of the power station, where they're trying to pull the coal flue, finer particles out of the exhaust plume. The wind boxes had a diffuser system that they'd never visually seen past. It was never built to have visual inspection ports put into it. It was about 3-4 stories high, and past the diffuser vanes they could never see. They've never visually seen anything, and this power station had been operating for about 20 years. Through a gap that was 450 mil wide, we managed to fly the Ilios up in a very dusty environment with 12 engineers sitting over my shoulders. And we were not in the middle of a planned shutdown. We were purely there just doing robotic trials. These 12 engineers saw visually right there over my shoulder damage mechanisms and erosion that was beyond repair, that they immediately all just ran off and started planning for the next shutdown. And a month later, they were kind enough to purchase an Ilios 2, but they're now doing this throughout the rest of their assets. And this is a workforce that doesn't really adopt technology. They were starting to explore that, but they were so quick to adopt it and bring it in-house, purely because they just saw the benefits of being able to quickly pick up a tool and deploy it with ease and make very quick, accurate assessments of what needs to be done there on the road. So I think that to me was an excellent example of just how handy this little tool was. Just to show some actual footage that you'll receive from the Ilios. I think it's very important to understand the capabilities of this unit in its visual data. A big advantage of the Ilios with its cage is it's designed for very close visuals. So you're able to get up very close to an object, or for example here, a burner, and you can see deep within it. There's no other UAV platform that allows you to get this close to a surface without coming into some serious troubles with maintaining flight and coming home. So the 4K camera that's equipped with the Helios, it's oblique lighting, 10K lumens, is able to light up a completely pitch dark space, adjustable lighting to assess what you're doing, optical sensor to give it stability, all enable you to capture really, really good data. On top of the capabilities of just the visual data, the next strength that we've really seen in the last, from its inception, because it was capable of doing it from the beginning, but in the last 6 months with my clients, is taking that visual data to a whole new level. And we're talking about the photogrammetry capabilities of the Helios. Photogrammetry, along with LiDAR capabilities of digital mapping and creating these digital twins, is a very important part of our sector. It's a new form of data and visualizing data that we want to absorb as quickly as possible. I think the photogrammetry part is a really important thing to align with what UAVs are capable with. Because, for example, on the picture on the left here, we're looking at the flight pattern of the Helios within an asset that has created the digital twin in the top right hand of the screen here, this being a floating tank. So if you can think or imagine that you've gone for a flight with the Helios and you've got 10 minutes of video, you're taking out some snapshots because you've seen some points of interest that need to be assessed. It's handy to have a picture of it and say, we found this at this location roughly. Can you kind of replicate that exactly, or can you tell exactly where you are, unless there's a visual cue inside the asset, or you're able to, as you've gone along through the video, count to a point where you know? The photogrammetry models enable us to create this digital twin and then localize that image and that information in a 3D world that we can now move about in. And the other really handy thing with this photogrammetry is you can take, for example, on that wall that you may have a point of interest, you may pick a picture. Well, there's probably close to another 8 to 10 pictures that have also got that point of interest that you may want to look at in its frame. And you can now move about those images and look at that point of interest from different angles and optimize what you're visually trying to see. So it's really handy in making a really wise assessment of what you're looking at. And then on the end of this, we've now created traceability. We've got data that we can go back to. And we've also created a digital twin of our environment that we've flown about in for later reference and just further analysis. It's another tool that's really, really handy. So out of the box, the Helios is capable of this, just with a bit further training and just best practice of how to use a UAV for doing photogrammetry. You can start doing this as soon as you want, basically.
Cooper, how does traceability kind of play into, repeating this inspection in intervals, whether it's, once a year, twice a year, every 10 years? And how does it, how can this tool be used to measure, degradation over time? Is this something that you're seeing, utilization with, or, is it in combination with other technologies or maybe other softwares out in the market?
Yes. So there's a number of ways of doing this with this unit, or UAVs, for example. So if we're sticking with photogrammetry, you can do volumetric assessments with your photogrammetry. So this may be, for example, refractory lining loss. This could be concrete loss. This could be a large area of corrosion that needs to be looked at. There's a really good case study done by Flyability on volumetric assessments of an internal volumetric assessments of a stockpiles for internally stored stockpile. Sorry, a bit of a tongue twister. Where it was external drones were not used, could not be used for. So one is for a quantitative assessment it can be used as. For traceability, the photogrammetry models enable us to fly this asset at a later stage, compare the digital twins, and we can localize which images between the two are in the same environment or same point inside that asset. And therefore we have the capability of doing traceability of knowing what has changed throughout that time. The only other thing that's really handy with the Ilios is with its inspector software. Due to the laser distance measurement, laser sensor that has on the front for one of its features, which is a distance hold to an object, being really close and perpendicular to a surface, you're able to do 2D measurements. This has been with a few examples and tests. If you do it correctly and with the best practices, you can actually be quite accurate with this. So you're enabled to do quantitative test or analysis as you're going along with your inspections.
It's great. Thank you, Cooper.
So unless there's any other questions specific for the Ilios 2, I was going to touch base on a new unit in the market that kind of has adopted UAV technology and kind of amalgamated it into another traditional form of remote visual inspection to kind of create something quite new and interesting. So this is the Zenith, which comes from Interactive Aerial, based out of Michigan in the United States. This group is from the get-go a UAV platform design, engineering, and manufacture, which they do in-house. And then their UAV as an internal inspection UAV. But what I really want to talk about here is quite a game changer and something that they went, hey, our UAV can do this, and we're really confident in doing this. But we found some limitations in specific inspections, such as vertical spaces with battery life and length of inspections. And we can quite, with a bit of engineering, take what we've got here and build ourselves a adapted or improved drop camera system. So what they've done is taken the stability and yawing or heading control of a drone and placed it into a control box and camera chassis, basically. With counter-rotating propellers, heading control and stability is now built into a camera and box. They've adopted a really good Sony XR99, I believe it is, camera to be fitted to the front of it. And with 10K lumens of lighting, a laser distance sensor, they've now got all the tools that they had in a UAV platform and now put it into a drop camera configuration. Where this is really handy is you can now do these long inspections, such as possibly stacks, mine shafts, wind chutes, or wind runs on mine sites, large stopes, elevator shafts. You have a lot more time now to run and do a continual inspection. This tool is very simple to use, very quick to deploy, pack up and move on to the next site. And one of those advantages is you don't have to be a UAV trained pilot or operator. You can just be a normal inspector that now has a different visual inspection tool to use. Sorry, Sam.
Oh, thank you, Cooper. Just kind of looking at the picture here and curious about the anatomy. It looks like it's a wireless system that's on connected to a winch, obviously for drop applications. How does that wireless capability from the controller to the command station, benefit an operator out in the field?
A good point. I kind of probably glossed over that little feature on it. So much like their UAV platforms that run on a wireless system, as does the Zenith. So the camera streams its visual data and telemetry and control requirements to the control box, which you're seeing on the winch system or tripod that is mounted at the top of the asset. That control box now is a repeater and now transmits that signal to a display screen, operating screen, where the inspector is situated. So the idea of this is that the tripod can hold the camera, deploy the camera, and the operator can be remote from the actual system. The advantage of this system with the larger batteries, the larger transmission capabilities and strength, I believe it can run up to about 500 feet in vertical distance up to the repeater box. And then from the repeater box out to the operator can be actually longer than that. And I believe it's up to nearly 700-800 feet. So it has a really strong transmission strength. And for certain assets, large stacks, for example, if you're doing a full inspection, which may take a couple of hours, I don't think you want to be sitting up there in the cold. So apart from that and safety advantages, it's a remotely operated now drop camera system. The operator has full control of the lowering, heading, stability, zoom and lighting functions of the camera as well.
Great. To my understanding, there's a level of photogrammetry capabilities embedded within this camera as well. Do you see this being a complementary technology to the Helios system?
Yes, definitely. I'll move on to the next point, which probably touches on exactly that, where the photogrammetry strength of this unit really starts to show through. So here's an example of a deployment of the Zenith, and this is in a elevator shaft. Now, speaking with the manufacturer, they're looking to roll this out in the future months. I know they're working on a beta software version of this now in systems. But the idea of the Zenith and one of its other, I think, its biggest advantages is they're looking to make this a fully autonomous operated system in the sense that you can put in some parameters of your asset, ask it to map that asset with 100% coverage with a certain distance, set the unit and run, and it will do 100% coverage of your asset. So this can be a very large asset and can take a number of hours, but you'll know that the unit will drop incrementally, rotate as it needs to, take images and a visual footage or 4K video of the entire asset with adequate coverage, that you now have images of everywhere you need to, full video, but you can create a full photogrammetric model out of one run, and you know you've got the correct stitching format that you need to make it much simpler. So second to where you saw with the Helios, where you're moving around in a free space, if you've worked with photogrammetry models, not the most difficult, but there's a lot of good practice in how you fly the drone to get the coverage. The Zenith is set and run. It's probably one of its greatest attributes is this automation that they're looking to bring out, getting a complete stability and free movement. It's a really, really cool part that I'm looking forward to seeing. I think one other really important thing I forgot to mention previously was when you're doing these vertical inspections, if you're known with stacks or even wind shafts, there's a lot of draft that comes through these areas. And with a Helios or any kind of UAV platform, this becomes quite problematic, especially as you get further up. Generally, the shafts become a little bit tighter, and you get Venturi effects across the top. But at any point, drafts make stability of the drone quite difficult. The gimbal arrangement, the stability, digital stability built into the camera of the Sony, and the paddle system that's giving it stability and heading control at any point at which you want to do, helps maintain that platform stationary and give you the quality image that you needed. One other thing as well, Sam, I didn't mention the capabilities of the actual camera in this. We've got an 18 megapixel camera with 4K video and with 30 times optical zoom. And that optical zoom is really beneficial for when you're in these larger assets, because generally will be situated quite central. And as you'll know, with any kind of optical zoom, the more you zoom out, the more the object or the surface that you're looking at moves about, just due to the distance that we're now looking at. And this is a really big strength of the Zenith that you will see in operation if you ever want to see an example footage. Is that at a full maximum optical zoom, the image is extremely stable for what you're looking at that distance. And that's a testament to the engineering and the systems that they've put in place inside the unit to give it that stability and that ability for you to move about and direct it wherever you want it to look.
Cooper, Cooper, appreciate that. I think we're definitely looking forward to seeing a demonstration video. In my history, high optics cameras have been available for a while, but the biggest challenge was stability. Once these cameras dropped past 10 meters or even less sometimes, you may get crystal clear, video, but you're getting crystal clear video that assets and headings that you're not aware of. You're not cognizant of what you're looking at right away. So interested to see how this camera bridges that gap between high-end video and picture quality, but also stabilization.
Me too. Sam, was there any questions that had come through from the participants that were online? Yeah, Sam, you're muted there. So maybe.
Sorry about that. So there was a comment made earlier on from actually one of our partners at Interactive Aerial, kind of letting us know that the next step of their evolution was going to be actually automation capabilities within the Zenith system.
Yep.
So it's kind of more of a news, than anything. But they are releasing automation capabilities for this system, and basically, in simple terms, that means you can preset, a routine within the software, and that really allows for repeatability, especially if you're inspecting more than one asset. So it's something we're pretty excited about. Again, this is more of a kind of a news outtake than anything, but our system currently that we have on hand is capable of achieving that now. Pretty simple to program, really just about understanding the asset and what details, what information you're trying to get out of that. So that's one of the comments we have. Looking through some questions, I think some that have been asked in the past regarding Helios. I think you kind of touched on it, but if there's any specific trainings or licenses that are required, because this is a confined space tool, do you have to have the full-blown FAA license if you're in the US to operate the system?
Look, it's a little hard for me to comment exactly on the FAA requirements. A little bit different to what is here. But generally, due to the weight of the drone, it's a lightweight drone. You kind of fall under some of the requirements. But the big thing with a lot of the requirements with UAVs is flying beyond visual line of sight. Unfortunately, once you fly into a confined space, you are losing that visual line of sight. As it is here, and with that, and the way that we kind of try and mitigate or understand that that ruling and reasoning is in an external environment. When you lose visual sight, you're losing perception of where your aircraft is at. You're now flying in, you're posing a risk to public and external areas. And there's a greater risk of losing control and contact with your aircraft. So flying inside an asset or a confined space, you are somewhat confined and controlled in that environment, and your aircraft should not be able to breach, hopefully, that environment to damage the public. So as it is here with Australia, it's a bit of a case-by-case thing. It is always best to always have what licensing you can acquire, because there are certain areas that may fall under or be close to regulatory bodies such as aviation or commercial aviation areas, be it whether you're inside or out. There is a lot of cases where you are flying externally into an asset, whether it may be externally outside into a tank. So therefore you are having to operate in those environments. So it's always best practice to have as much licensing on board. I know Australia here, and I have read a bit of FAA stuff. I know they're always continually working on this area, but I can't speak specifically for FAA. Sorry.
Appreciate that, Cooper. Kind of switching over to more of a commercial question for you. This is something that I believe where Nexus really bridges a gap in any market really. But this technology and most technologies like drones and high resolution industrial cameras advance regularly and quite often. Breakthroughs are coming through, almost weekly. And how does Nexus really help or really come into play with our model, and how do we help clients kind of adopt new technology and kind of stay in with the latest and greatest that's available on the market? Where does Nexus fit into that?
Well, I think the best part with what we're trying to do internally is always look for multiple solutions and the best solutions to the industry that we work in, because we have such a large client base. We have a lot of information feed into about what is required out in the field. So second to that is we're always looking, expanding. We've got a lot of industry partners. We've got a lot of suppliers that work with us. So we're always being fed information and always looking over horizons for what's new. So as a focal point, Nexus builds itself on its RVI, NDT, and robotic platform knowledge and tries to deliver that to its clients. So we're always exploring. So I think we're a very good point of reference for multiple disciplines within this asset integrity and maintenance kind of world that we're speaking of in today. The strength when Nexus offers that to its clients is that we understand this technology is a high capex purchase and value, and it's also growing at a rapid pace. So our renting and leasing models really help put that in the hands of the operators quickly, efficiently, and with the ability to move about within the technology, because there's so much that they can use robotic platforms, they can use new NDT practices, they can use new RVI technologies such as the Zenith without having to outlay huge capex investments initially. So our renting allows people access to a large range of technologies in-house here at Nexus, and we are able to, with our knowledge of all of our systems and our training, ensure that you get the right equipment from our large range, and make you continue on with your work. You're able to upscale, you're able to move on to the next job, and either come back to that same PIP tooling or move on to the next one, whether that is our renting or if you have a specific tool that you're finding is just very focused on what your scope of work within your company is. Our leasing models help keep you running, help build up the upscaling if you need to move into new technology, whether it be in the next year, 2 or 3. And we also make sure that we can support you with the maintenance and upkeep of your equipment to keep you out there and working. We are purely wanting to be a technology and equipment supplier with our engineering arms and customizing and training to be able to do that handover of equipment and technology, support our clients to be able to get the data that the operators and asset owners need, and then bring it all back and have hopefully a nice handshake at the end of it.
Excellent, Cooper. I really appreciate that. That's the questions we have for now.
Cool. One thing I just thought of with the Zenith, which I didn't touch on, which is similar to the Ilios 2, is their software that they have also developed. It's an in-house software that they use, and it's the same principle as the Ilios with the laser distance measurement and the non-pixel ratio of their camera. They're able to do 2D measurements of their images. And they've also built in, they can do area measurements within their software as well. It's a really good program. You're able to actually pull in images from other images that you may have, and through adjustments or knowing a value within that image, you can adjust it to be, I'm trying to think of the word. sorry, it'll come to me in a second, but you can proportion the image right, so you can calibrate your image to be correct when you're doing your 2D measurements. So it's a really handy feature with the Zenith, and it's supplied with the unit. And I know it also works with their UAV platform as well. I think that's something that's really handy as well when you're doing your automation, is that you can map away and then pull out and do your visual assessments, do your quantitative values of your damages, and then you've got full traceability, and you can deploy the Zenith at your next shutdown, get it to go to the exact same location before by presetting where you want it to go, or we'll stop there and do another measurement and be able to quantify how much of that has progressed in that amount of time. I think I've covered most of my material here today, Sam. I think what I've really tried to express here is the expansion that we're seeing, one in the UAV market, and then how this is also moving over into other platforms where people are now adopting what UAV technology has brought and bring it back full circle into other areas and other traditional methods. And it's just showing that, as we've said, that our technology is changing and moving day by day. Where there's new players in the field, there's people trying to do bigger and better and badder things, and it's an interesting and awesome world to be part of. We get to see some really neat little tools come out that enable us to do some really neat things. And I think the most important part about it is that we can still operate that outside a dangerous or risky environment and still walk away with the information that we need to continue doing our jobs. And I'm really excited to see where it keeps going from here.
I appreciate that, Cooper, and thanks a lot. I think that was really informative. The how and why, this technology gets implemented. It's always important, and Nexus is always in that discovery mode. What's next? What's going to be the most useful tool for our toolbox for our clients? So I think the Helios has really proven to be an industry must-have, and I think I think Nexus is positioned well to help many more companies implement this technology, grow their business, and for asset owners really build out their inspection programs and so forth. So excited to see more technology come through. Excited to host more of these webinars, but definitely very informative. Really appreciate it. We'll be sharing this presentation later on, and if anybody has any questions, Nexus is a team of over 50 individuals, most of who are engineers in different disciplines, many of whom have had much field experience. So there's kind of a plethora of knowledge just amongst under one roof. So we're happy to answer those questions and happy to get your get your business to the next level through the use of technology. So my name is Sam Perez, Robotic Systems Manager here for Nexus. This was Cooper Smart delivering an excellent presentation regarding the Helios 2 drone, the evolution of confined space drones, and the Zenith, the new revolutionary Zenith camera. So we appreciate everybody's time. We're definitely around for Q&A. So thank you. Everyone stay safe.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye, Sam.